The Articulate Coven is the original, unofficial podcast and fan community for Anne Rice's Interview with the Vampire and Anne Rice's Immortal universe from AMC and AMC+.
God, I had something cute that I wanted to say before we actually started this week. I was pleased with the way that worked last week, and now I have forgotten my cute little quip. We're just going to get into it. It'll come up. Welcome to the Articulate Coven. We are your hosts. I'm Joel.
I'm Ashley.
And we are the Articulate Coven. Thank you for joining us once again. We are the original fan community and podcast for Interview with the Vampire and all of Anne Rice's Immortal universe as brought to us by AMC and AMC+. In particular, right now, we're talking about the Mayfair Witches. The series is in its first season, episode 4.
We're the begrudging fan cast.
Yeah, there you go.
The begrudging fan cast of the Mayfair Witches right now. We're having a time. We're having a journey here.
Well, I'll say this, Ashley. I had things to say and a desire to say them about this week's episode. So maybe that's moving in the right direction. Let's put it like that.
Oh, hell yeah. Absolutely. No, I'm having a great time with it. It's like, who are we and what are we doing?
So we are speaking about the 4th episode of the first season of Mayfair Witches from AMC and AMC+. This one's called Curiouser and Curiouser, and we're going to dive right into it. Spoilers ahead if you haven't seen the episode. I always suggest watching the episode, as I've heard at least some of our listenership watches it twice like we do before we get into it. I don't know that I would suggest that for normal people, but honestly, Ashley, this week took twice to get into my head. For some reason, I felt... You mentioned last week you felt like you were drugged. I felt like I was cloudy-headed or something. Something was going on.
Well, in Curiouser and Curiouser, this is a definite, obvious reference to Alice in Wonderland. So, and there's definitely some falling down some pretty deep rabbit holes happening to our characters in this episode. So I think that they're leading us somewhere. And I'm interested to go there. I'm just not sure what's going on.
My 2 favorite, most book-accurate moments for me so far in the series both came in this episode. So that's some high praise. We're going to get to both of them. Let's just jump in right from the very start. And again, very interesting opening scene. We've talked about this last week, especially. I mentioned it seems like every episode opens with a very interesting moment and closes with a very interesting moment. This week they held that absolutely on the opening end. The witch funeral, very, very cool. I wanted more of it. They're teasing us with this Suzanne story. I want more.
It has some real Midsummer vibes to it, to me. Like, even though it was really dark and kind of and very mournful and kind of scary, it doesn't have that same juxtaposition that Midsummer did with all the flowers and everything happens in bright daylight. But it had that sort of thing, like this is the real funeral. This is where you can really, really grieve her and show how you feel, show her how you feel, show the universe how you feel about this loss.
It's super interesting to me that we're now 4 episodes in. We've gotten these flashbacks, throughout, but we're halfway through the first season and we still don't have even a hint of Lasher in these flashbacks. Of course, the story of Suzanne is inextricably tied to the story of Lasher, and all we've gotten is the kind of faceless, voiceless whispers in one episode so far from her.
Yeah, this is one of the things that makes me kind of wonder if we're going to get all the way through this entire book this season. I definitely don't. I mean, obviously, we're not going to get through all the past lives of the Mayfair Witches, but I don't even know that we're going to make it all the way through the book, actually, because they're really pacing themselves out pretty nicely to not, go beyond their source material as far as, storyline, what's given. I mean, they've gone beyond the source material in so many delicious ways, but I mean, in that particular, they're not Game of Thronesing themselves, which is getting ahead of their source material in such a fucked up way that you muck up the ending so badly.
So how did you read the switch there? So we get the Suzanne scene and then it switches immediately to Rowan, which is a common thing. We've seen that again and again, but this time Rowan is writhing in ecstasy over Cyprian. I got super excited. I was like, oh, the mind melding last episode has led to some body melding. I'm in for it. No.
Yeah, we just jumped right in.
Dream?
But no.
Is it a is it a Lasher vision? Because he eventually turns it's Cyprian at first, and then it's Lasher on top of her. How did you read that? Is that Lasher giving her that vision, or is it just a dream?
I kind of read it as I did. It was about this, intense sexual experience with Sip, and then Lasher catches on to her having this fantasy and busts into it.
That makes sense. We get a very interesting line from Cyprian there that made me really think about his backstory and whether or not we're going to get it. I don't know. She's going through the room and she's sort of picking up objects like, who is this guy? Who is Cyprian Grieve? And he makes the point that they're not his objects. He gets people to bring him things that contain good memories. And he says other people's memories are cleaner. What happened to Cyprian to give him his gift? That's assuming that he got it after a near-death experience like Michael did. In the book, Michael Curry is drowned. He's dead, actually. And Rowan revives him. And that in that moment, he's given this gift of visions through touch. There's a word for that. It's not telekinesis, but there is a similar word for that. I don't know what it is. Psychokinetic or something like that, I think. Anyway, I'm assuming that Cyprian, especially with that line, there's some, danger, damage, sadness in his past. I really hope we get to see that. If you're going to flesh out this character, particularly if they follow up on my guess last week that they might give us some of the wrong side of the tracks, New Orleans life, upbringing, whatever, through him and his sister. I hope that's what this is hinting at. I'm excited to see. That's honestly one of the places where they've invented things that I'm excited to see what they do with it.
And interested to see. Yeah. No, I totally agree with that. I'm very interested in his backstory. I also think that if you're going to ditch, two what feel like kind of important characters to combine into this new character, it is important that we feel as connected to Sip as we do to Aaron and to Michael. I think that's really important. Because you need that buy-in a little bit from the book readers if you're going to get rid of two kind of beloved characters. So the way to do that is to make us give a shit about him and love him a little bit the way we do Aaron and Michael.
Boy, I will say this episode did give me at least one character which I do care about. I'm excited to see where they go. We're going to get to that in a minute. We get to the funeral, and the funeral brings something that I want to point out because this is one of those scenes that I mentioned. I think it's incredibly book accurate, and I love the way that they did it. Harry Hamlin at the funeral cutting Deidre's hair off. It's probably my favorite moment of the entire series so far. It is incredibly accurate to the book. This is something that happens. I'm not going to spoil for those that haven't read the book what the hair cutting is for, but this is very much a Mayfair book thing. I'm super excited that they kept it. I'm assuming that it's for the same reason, and if not, I'll riot later in the season.
Yeah, no, I totally caught that too and felt the same way. I was like, ooh, 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 ooh. I'm really enjoying this version of Cortland. Harry Hamlin is hilarious. He's fantastic. He's ridiculous. He's over the top. He's everything that they've turned this character into. He also mentioned his father, Julian, in this episode. So we got Julian mentioned by name for the people who were really worried about 100% Julian erasure. I don't think we're looking at that now, hopefully.
Yeah, I think based on what the executive producers, particularly the overall Immortal Universe producers, have said, I'm getting the sense now that they're holding back on most of the Mayfair history because they plan on telling that in some spinoffs. They maybe even plan more witch spinoffs in the short term than vampire spinoffs, interestingly. I wonder if that's about like Rollin knowing like we don't kill the golden goose, like let's build a firm foundation and you can throw some leaves off over there and see what sticks, but over here I'm building a thick stalk first before we go anywhere. Anyway, Julian exists though in this universe, thankfully, thank God. Yes, so we will, or at least we can get his story in some way at some point down the road, and so excellent. Yes, and I'll agree with you on Harry Hamlin too. I made fun of him early on because he made fun of
he's absurd.
This book, and he is very over the top. And I do find it interesting how they've combined several different characters to sort of figure out how to put this archetype of a character in the modern day storyline to pair with Rowan. But it does occur to me looking back, or like, imagining the alternative world where we have a more true to book adaptation. What interesting male figure of that generation would be in this show? Honestly, Aaron Leitner would
There's
be older.
not one.
No, there's not.
Exactly.
Aaron Leitner is older.
And Cortland.
You've got like Pierce is alive in the modern day in the book, but Pierce is boring.
Right. He's so boring. He's like the like follow the rules, very good Mayfair son, you know.
He's
even
just
Cortland,
a lawyer.
though we know him to be a fucking creep. Like Cortland isn't even that interesting on paper, really. I mean, he's a gross guy, but he's not nearly as interesting as they've made this new kind of version of the character. But yeah, Pierce is just a fucking lawyer. Their side of the family is boring. They're lawyers.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, basically, Julian is the only interesting male character in the family, or at least in the, there isn't one in the modern day. So I do, in retrospect, I sort of understand where they were going with that one, and I'm going to give it to him, especially because I am, like you, I'm enjoying Harry Hamlin in the role. BT Dub, if you don't generally listen to the official podcast, of course we want you to listen to ours first, but if you don't generally listen to the official podcast, I'd suggest checking it out this week. I'm only about halfway through it myself, but Harry Hamlin is the guest on the most recent episode, so some good content there, I think. The other scene, though, that I loved so much from this episode comes right after that scene. The rose petals at the funeral. Lasher blows the doors open and fills the church with rose petals. This is not from the book, by the way, but the idea of the rose petals, which we've seen earlier with Deidre and the schoolgirls and that flashback from episode 1, that is in the book.
That's one of Lasher's sweet moves. It's one of his, yeah.
Well, and it's very true to the character of Lasher from the books.
It's one of his, it's how he woos and, yeah. Yeah, I agree. I agree. This was a really, it was lovely. That was a lovely moment. And I mean, earlier when you got a hint of it was really great too, but to see it kind of in almost like a different version of the death of the witch storm, you know, was really beautiful to see.
Ashley, let's talk about Sip and the Talamasca for a minute here. They are very worried about Rowan and her safety, and yet they leave her at the funeral just all by herself.
All by herself, and then let her just again. This woman does not know how to wander around New Orleans safely. We're just gonna let her wander around. At least she's not wearing her pajamas this time. But my God, you're gonna let her wander over to that house because you know she's gonna end up at that damn house.
I don't understand it. So first of all, we know that SIP's supervisor is in New Orleans. He's around, but also he sent that entire security team to do whatever it would do the voodoo on the outside of the building.
Right, of the building
a few episodes ago. Like, just send 2 of those dudes to hang out at the funeral with her. Like, you just stand in the back, like anybody who lives in New Orleans that's attending the big Mayfair funeral. Anyway, I don't understand what they're doing with the organization here, but that leads into the next couple of scenes. So first and foremost, the Talamasca has run down the person who killed Deidre. So we were wrong.
This was cool.
Isn't a season-long whodunit. I liked it too, mostly, although I've got a couple of nitpicks. We first see him being tortured, it seems like, by an unseen presence. He's screaming and running and falling down all over himself, almost gets hit by a car a couple of times.
It looks like a Fight Club.
Seemingly. Oh, absolutely. And it looks like he's about to jump off like the
absolutely the parking deck
of this parking garage. Yeah. And he's tackled by a couple of Talamasca members. It's almost immediately clear. And then they take him to, I guess, the chapter house. So he's restrained, and they bring in Sip to do a quote-unquote cold read on him.
They're interrogation rooms.
Yeah, which, by the way, I did like the design of this. So far, I don't really like the look of the Talamasca, but I did like this room.
Oh, yeah, no, it was interesting to see a little bit more of the guts of the Talamasca.
So, but they bring in sort of, I guess, Sip's boss's boss. We're led to believe this person is very important. The line is, Albrecht's here. He wants to work. He wants to watch you work. This is a completely invented character. I went and double checked. This character does not exist in the Alphabetary or in any of the Vampire Companion or Witch's Companion books that I own. Seems like this is totally invented. I like this actor, by the way. Had to look it up. I couldn't think of his name. Dennis, and I'm probably mispronouncing the last name, Boussakaris. Dennis Boussakaris is the guy's name. I like this actor just fine. But it occurs to me, though, okay, fine, invent a character, I guess. There's not enough Talamasca members to include by name. Sure. But even if you're going to invent him, you couldn't make this guy British? This old guy who's supposedly one of the bosses?
No, I mean, yeah. It's so strange. It's such a different version of this group than I've ever imagined before. It's just absolutely bizarre to me. It's so very different than how I imagined the Talamasca. Right now, it's got like a cross between like an X-Files meets the first season of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And it's so strange to me.
Okay, you know what it makes me think of, Ashley? And honestly, so far it's not even as good as this, but this is the closest to me. Did you ever watch the Highlander TV series?
Yes,
okay.
Absolutely. The Watchers.
I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, I was going to say, I'm pretty sure they're called the Watchers. All right, the Watchers organization in the Highlander TV series is literally a Talamasca ripoff. You do look at the dates. The Witching Hour had come out like a year or two before the release of the first season of the Highlander TV series, and it is straight up the Talamasca. They renamed them. They made them about immortals instead of, immortal sword fighters instead of vampires. But it's the same sort of thing. They watch and observe. They don't interact, etc.
They don't interfere.
Except they do. They totally do. Yeah. And anyway, I loved the Watchers, but they were always like a cheap cable version of the Talamasca. Well, this is like a cheap cable version of the Watchers is what it feels like so far. I'm sad a little bit.
Well, and because in my vision for and we've talked about this, in our vision for this whole expanded world, the idea of Tales of the Talamasca sounds like a fucking good time to me. But now they've done such strange things to it. I'm not sure that that would be an even feasible direction for them to go into,
I mean, I guess if we want to, one thing that they might have done here by not using a named Talamasca member from the books or even giving him a British accent, we're in literally just the New Orleans branch. We've only seen the Louisiana representatives of the Talamasca. And so the A team has not even showed up yet.
I do feel that. I do think that is true. I do think that we're kind of seeing just this very, a slice of it. I don't think that we're seeing the full expanded universe, if it were, of the Talamasca. I really do feel like everything we've seen has been sort of related to this one New Orleans location, this one New Orleans mother house, and I think that's kind of been the limited view we've had so far. So I definitely think there's chances for us to expand and to explore different things, and for it to be a bit of a richer world, like we hope it will be.
From your lips to God's ears, and Roland Jones' ears, and Mark Johnson's ears, and Spalding's ears, and all of the people that can make
changes. We'll just start
please.
Following them around and whisper creepily in behind them as we walk right behind them.
These books are actually really good. You should read them.
Stories are really great in the book. Maybe you want to tell some of
that. Yeah, right. So we get the scene though with Deidre's killer, where it's clearly he's possessed by Lasher.
Oh,
and
I loved it, yeah.
Lasher's sort of moving him around, this really neat herky-jerky special effect that they've got going on. That was actually pretty cool. And then eventually Lasher kills him, breaks his neck, and then leaves the body. And we get to see a pretty cool effect of Jack Houston standing up out of the body through Cyprian's eyes, kind of as he touches the body to check for pulse. I dig all of that, except Lasher doesn't work that way. And so in the books, and here is even for non-book readers, this is a little bit, not spoiler, but some of the backstory that you get in the files of the Mayfair family is you get some ideas of the experimentation that members of the Mayfair family have done with Lasher over the years to see how he could take physical form. In particular,
and it's fucked up. There's some fucked up shit.
Oh, it's crazy, and I think we're likely to get there. But
what's Marguerite? Is it Marguerite that?
I think
that's
she's
trying
the
to
primary
put him
one,
into
yes, that
corpses?
does it over and over again. Yes, that does them in corpses and living flesh as well. But in all of those, so you end up with like these test tube lashers basically, and there's like literally heads in jars and things of where he's sort of like half transposed the form into his own. But I wonder though, if it's possible for him to marionette this guy and torture him like this, if he can just snap his neck, I mean, it feels like those experimentations would have gone farther, or that he would. I don't know. It feels like that's going to hamstring them on the overall arc of what Lasher wants to do and how this book
And why he needs to do it.
wraps up.
Because if he can, if he can be in a body and make the body do what he wants it to do, though I guess part of it was that he couldn't really control the guy. He was having a really hard time, controlling him.
Yeah, maybe it's literally there's another personality there struggling. But that makes me wonder, okay, if you found a body that was brain dead, could he just take that body and walk off with it? I don't know. I mean, and maybe that's something that the show is building to as well. So I'll try to give him the benefit of a doubt there, because overall I did like that scene.
I did too. I thought it was so cool and fun. Break your own neck in front of me. That's crazy shit. I love it. I will always fight on that. I don't know why. That sort of gag, I'm like, whoa, you killed yourself that way. Love it.
That scene also, though, gives us this hint at something's going on within the Talamasca, I guess. Albrecht, the guy who's come in to watch Sip work, I think clearly has something to do with what's going on here. Are we going to have infighting inside the Talamasca, a coup attempt or something?
I think clearly, because the wiping of the elevator had to have been done by someone with some sort of psychic power. That could not have just been done by Carlotta. That could not have been done by Lasher. I think that had to have been done by, someone with the Talamasca. I just don't see how it could be anyone else.
So Cyprian brings that up and says, I think there's a supernatural element here. And Albrecht's answer was, well, thank you so much. You've gone above and beyond. And Kelly immediately snorted, sitting beside me. My wife snorted and said, yeah, when you tell somebody that they've gone above and beyond, it really means you've gone too far.
You've gone too far. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Oh, well, look how well you've done. We'll see you reassigned to the, to the
hinterland.
Exactly.
All right. I want to move on to the character that I mentioned earlier, who I've kind of fallen for. In the episode, I was intrigued. In the follow-up of the episode, as I did a little research, I fell in love. I want to talk about Josephine, Cortland's daughter.
Yes.
So now Josephine, or JoJo, apparently she goes by personally. Cortland calls her Josephine directly in the episode, but I think later we're going to see her go by JoJo. Where did this character come from? I was sort of confused. I'm like, why? JoJo doesn't exist in the books. First of all, as we've mentioned, Cortland isn't even alive in the modern day storyline. It's Pierce, his descendant, but there's no JoJo as a niece or a daughter or granddaughter or anything that I can remember or that I could find. But I immediately was like, well, this is interesting. She's got sass. She's got great style. Clearly, they're doing something with this character. What's the deal? I found a great article, which is going to be linked in the show notes, by the way. Jen Richards is the actor's name. Jen is a trans actor, and she, in the article that I've linked to, I think it's great. Jen is a book fan. In particular, she's a Mayfair fan. And she says that she had trouble with the first few episodes of the show because of how much they deviate from the book story, and she sort of had to put it aside in her mind and go, well, this is like inspired by the Mayfair Witches as opposed to a direct adaptation. And I'm like, okay, wait a minute, you've got my attention. But she goes on, and in the interview, they discuss the character of Josephine. They discuss whether or not JoJo or Josephine is actually trans in the show. And apparently it's not a topic that comes up at all in this season 1. And then there's a discussion of that, does queer representation in media have to be a plot thread, or is it important also to have characters whose transness or queerness exactly just is part of their existence and not even remarked upon? In particular, Jen's headcanon is that JoJo is trans, that it happened a long time ago, and that all the people that we see them interact with in the show are family members, basically, and long time. Josephine's well known in the area, and anybody who had a problem with this long since got over it. Her money, her authority, her charisma and charm have more than paved over any issues that arose. Right. And it's just the way that things are. But in particular, Jen's idea, and again, the article goes into this in more in depth, but her idea is that she was terrified to make the transition because of her family and her father's status in particular. And yet when she came out, Cortland was very welcoming and affirming and, lovingly responded to it all. And so that connection, when her father accepted her when she didn't really expect him to, has sort of tied her to him in a way that makes her overlook some of his more nefarious qualities, which I think is really interesting backstory, deep backstory. I hope they hold it. The one thing that occurred to me, though, thinking through that all and reading through that all, the nature of Cortland's association to the rest of this family. And again, we've hinted at it. I think we've mentioned it in previous times. I don't want to mention specifics in the middle of the episode here as things unravel, but the nature of his association to the rest of the family, if that's where they go, if JoJo is trans and they do have that backstory of him being understanding and accepting, it makes for really interesting potential storylines as Josephine understands some of the things that her father is responsible for. And also it could potentially have interesting comments to make about Cortland himself. We've talked already about how Julian, being the lone male member of the family who sees Lasher or is sort of considered the witch of his generation, in this show, they've given Cortland at least some of those qualities. He is clearly connected to the mystic side of the family. He does see Lasher and clearly has seen Lasher in the past, spoken to him even. So knowing the family's ties to the powers to femininity, I mean, again, makes me wonder, Cortland, is this like maybe in a different generation? Would he have maybe considered himself trans? Does he see some of his own gender fluidity perhaps in his daughter's storyline, and that's why he's so excited? Anyway, I think there's interesting things to go in there that the book never really goes into, especially in the modern day, that have the potential to come out through this character and their presentation on the show. So I got my fingers crossed for that it's not just wasted effort. Clearly Jen's bringing her A game to the show. And I am so glad to know there at least is one example. We asked the other day, like, where's the book nerd on set? Well, Jen Richards was one of the book nerds on set.
We've got one. Thank God. Yeah.
How much voice she has in the writer's room, I would not guess that. But anyway.
No, probably not much. But I was immediately captivated by her performance. I was completely drawn to that character. And of course, like you, I was trying to figure out, is this an amalgamation character? Is this a brand new character? What's the deal with Josephine? I loved how she took, because you can tell she's very much of her dad's side. On her dad's side, she was like, are you sure you want Carlotta to be the one that is the one that's teaching her about our family? And she swoops right in there and takes Rowan under her wing, gets her a cocktail, takes her to the quiet dining room where she can show her all the portraits and talk about her, her, what she's going to inherit, the inheritance and everything, teach her about the designee and all that. She's now in control of what Rowan's learning at that time. And I think I love that move. And I loved her, shout out to Mary Beth as being her favorite. I thought that was kind of a cool thing with the vibe of this trans actor performing this role, and Mary Beth being a character who loved to dress as a man and experience life through that eye. So I was in love with those few scenes. I thought it was fantastic. Those are the things, like you said, that made me really excited as a book reader. I was like, and even though it's a new character, it made me excited as a book reader.
Yeah, very much so. Very much so. All right. That was maybe the most praise we've given this show in one segment solidly so far. So kudos to us. Thank you, Jen, for helping us find it. We're going to transition though, because I got a bone to pick. I want to talk about Tessa. All right. First of all, Ashley, I knew that I needed 2 watches for this episode because I had gone and started reading the comments in our Facebook group, which, by the way, links in the show notes for our Facebook group and our Discord community. If Facebook's not your bag, join either one of those. Great conversations going on all week long about this show, about Interview with the Vampire, about the books themselves, about Anne Rice and fandom in general. Lots of cool stuff. Lots of cool people. You should join us. By the way, like 20-something members added to the Facebook group last week.
Yeah,
that was exciting
it was
to
awesome.
see. I kind of thought this show was died down. Maybe we'd already built our audience. Thank you guys. It's nice to have you all aboard.
Thanks for hanging out.
But
thanks for coming
Tessa,
along.
The folks mentioned in the comment thread, Tessa equals Mona. Tessa. Why are they changed Mona to Tessa? It's got to be the same character, et cetera, et cetera. And I was like, wait a minute. Who? Tessa? I don't even remember a Tessa. And at first I was like, they mean Josephine, right? But Josephine's not Mona. Josephine's Cortland's daughter. That can't be Mona. Mona's further down the line, et cetera, et cetera. Anyway, I'm running these things and I'm like, wait, you got to go back and watch this episode again. So I did. I watched the whole thing again. And sure enough, there she is. She comes through at the start of the funeral. Cute little blonde girl, yeah, and she starts to talk to Rowan immediately. Her mom shoos her away. Don't get on your social justice high horse, not today. And then later, when everybody's clouding around Rowan, Tessa comes up, starts talking, and her mom actually introduces the subject of the burned women. So again, Tessa's going to be involved in this witch hunt storyline, clearly. Also at the funeral, right. And I didn't see this one the first time, but she comes up to lay flowers for Deidre, and her photo is taken. Tessa's photo is taken by the same creep from the coroner's office that was in the previous episode talking about witches. So they're building towards something there. But Tessa, I mean, she's just got to be the Mona character. Otherwise, why would you have 2 girls of that same generation? Mona would be younger at this point in the book.
Younger,
but we talked about how they were going to age her up. She'd be in high school at least, if not older. This is the Mona character.
I suspect.
I don't understand why they changed the name.
Aging her up a little bit. I prefer them aging.
Oh, I'm with you.
Because again, that storyline.
Oh, it gets nasty.
Get kind of icky. So, so it's nice that they've done her some justice. But yeah, why bother changing the character name? Like, I don't care what her hair color is. But why bother changing the name?
Well, especially when she's one of, if not the main character of the second book in the series. I mean, Mona becomes, well, I don't want to, anyway, she's a super important character.
Yeah.
She crosses over with the Vampire Chronicles down the road. Mona matters in a way, maybe even, don't hate me for it, that Rowan doesn't in the long term, honestly. Like, Rowan is a character like Louis. If you wanted to, you could sideline him after season 1 or 2.
Yeah.
Rowan could ride off into the sunset and never appear again, even though she does appear in the books later. But you could. She's not so integral to the ongoing narrative that you would need her. Mona is. And not only that, Mona is roughly our age. I thought I had to go look this up. I was thinking, based on when the books came out, that Mona was roughly our same generation. You know, I talked when we did the episode about Interview with the Vampire. Kirsten Dunst and I are the same age, so her version of Claudia was my age when I went to see that movie, and so like, all of the strange hints at sexuality there, and her own burgeoning adulthood as she develops. All of that was what I was feeling at the time too. I was super identified with her portrayal. It still hits home for me. Mona was that in the books for the Mayfair Witches. When I got, especially in Lasher, because she is such a big character there. I don't even think she appears in The Witching Hour. But in Lasher, the portrayal of Mona was so compelling, and she was my age. The way that she looked at this world was enticing, and she understood the power, and she understood the mysticism, and she understood the danger too, it seemed, at least, and was just grabbing it all by the balls, like Julian, which is a character that we've already talked about, we like a lot,
Right.
I don't know, man. Mona in the books is Blanche Devereaux of the Mayfair family, right? She makes a promise. She makes a promise to herself at the age of 12 that she's going to screw every single male Mayfair member, a Mayfair family member. And I think she basically accomplishes that by the end of it too.
It's a real weird goal. It's a real weird thing to shoot for. You could be anything you want to be. You could fuck all your uncles. Just yikes.
Well, but she's also in the book.
Little
She's
girls
also,
everywhere can always know that. Sorry.
No, but she's in, she's fascinated with Ophelia from Hamlet, and I don't know. She's like super artistic and super intelligent, and she's got a head for business. It ends up anyway.
She gets the way this family is. Asher, she gets it. She really does, more than some people.
Well, and we get a hint that, I mean, she tells Rowan, I'm excited about a designee who's going to use the family's, power for good. So okay, great. That's
Rowan moving forward to start like the medical facilities and things that she was. I hope we see that. I hope that we see some positive action. And again, like as we all sit and beg for Rowan to have more agency as a character in this, that's the kind of shit I want to see.
Me too. This is when we get our Julian reference. We already discussed that, though. I am excited that he is in this universe. Let's go ahead, Ashley, and skip ahead. I want to talk about this final scene because I got a feeling we probably both got a lot of things to say. Rowan and Carlotta, as everyone finally left for the funeral, they're all gone home after the party, and the two of them are alone for dinner.
Crazy Aunt Carl
sends the help home, and then starts this conversation with Rowan where she begins to unburden herself about how much she hated Deidre. Okay, first things first. I have done quite a bit of smudging in my time. You and I both did some outdoor drama.
Yes.
And this is very common practice. You'd light the smudge stick, you'd say a little prayer, a little meditation, whatever your higher power or central thoughts are. You'd center yourself there, and you'd get ready for a great performance, a great safe show, right? That's the hope. You get rid of the bad spirits and bring only positivity to the stage. I've never seen a smudge stick burn that hard. I think the point is to mostly blow it out where it's just the smoke, right? Carlotta don't know how to do it.
That's the point, but I think her point was to light that bitch on fire. Like, I don't think she had any intention of smudging out any shit. Let that burn like it was a Molotov. Like, that was not spiritual use of the sage. It was a weaponized prayer, if ever I've heard one.
Oh man, not a spiritual use of the sage. Strong title contender for this episode, I gotta tell you.
Right?
Why didn't Rowan kill this bitch?
I mean, I don't know.
Why didn't?
I don't know. I don't know, because maybe she's afraid if she does, she's not going to find out the things she wants to know.
So that's the real question. Is not why Rowan didn't do it. Why didn't the showrunners let Rowan kill? Why didn't the showrunners want Rowan to kill this bitch? But I mean, she does in the books. This is one of the deaths. I mean, they've already given her a death that she doesn't actually commit. The pharmaceutical guys sort of invented, but she kills Carlotta. They get together. Carlotta reveals, I'm the one that hid your birth, and let me tell you why. And Lasher's evil, and you ought to burn this house to the ground. By the way, Carlotta doesn't burn the house to the ground or attempt to. She tells Rowan she ought to.
Yeah.
And then Rowan, when she's going into all of this stuff about you should never have come here and your mother was a waste of time and blah 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 blah, Rowan blows her head up. She gives her an aneurysm like we've seen her do. I don't understand why they didn't just let her do. I mean, this actress is great. Fine, keep the actress around. But you killed Annabeth Gish off.
Yeah, I could see wanting another episode or two of Beth Grant, but yowza, this bitch is supposed to die, and we kind of need her to kind of get things going in Rowan's favor, I feel like. So it's kind of odd that we're stuck here with this shocking accident that happens at the end of the scene that no one could have seen coming.
Yeah, that's another one. Like, and I saw it coming as soon as she pulled the blade. I'm like, well, she's not going to stick that in. She's not going to stick that in Rowan, but here comes Sip breaking into the house in a minute. She's going to stab Cyprian. Why in the world are they going to stab Cyprian? And I don't get it. I mean, again, if Cyprian didn't have his power yet at this point, Well, I guess
and
this could be a way to subvert the Rowan thing. I mean, the Michael thing. And now he's got powers, but
yeah, but his life has already been in danger once they let Rowan save him to already kind of build that relationship. So I wish I
that's right. I forgot.
Yeah,
they already tried to kill him once this season.
We already did this fucking once this season. So I'm like, what the hell, you guys? Why didn't we kill the old bitch and get on with our lives?
Oh, man. And Lasher locks them in. I don't get that either. What is he doing? You're not going to kill that. You're not going to kill that bitch. You might kill the old bitch. Don't kill the new bitch. I don't understand.
Yeah,
I don't understand what they're doing.
No, it's It's very confusing. I am, Oh, wait. I just got to go back to this because this scene fucked me up so bad in the last episode. Carlotta did have to go back down to the basement and dig in that lady's mush to see if the necklace was still there. Oh God. Sorry, I just thought of that. That was pretty.
And it's a great point too, though, because again, like, what did Carlotta think was gonna happen? She knew. First of all, she heard him banging her skull against the wall, so like it was only a matter of time until she was dead. But then once Lasher kills this person, you know he's no longer tied to her. So what did you imagine he was going to do? He's going to steal that necklace and go clean it up so that his girl can get it. Like, that's what he's going to do. I mean, she's not even that surprised when she gets down there. I'm just like, it's a bad plan, Carl. Like, come on.
Yeah.
By the way, I loved it
You're smarter than that.
I loved it when Harry Hamlin calls her Carl when he first comes into the house, uninvited, by the way, and then immediately says, "Thanks for the invitation. Sorry, we're late." Carl, there you are. In the book, almost everybody refers to as Uncle Carl or Aunt Carl, excuse me. And I had some aunts that went by shortened names into the masculine form like that, like tough old biddies. I had a couple of aunts like that.
I have an Aunt Bill.
So it's neat. Yes,
I have an Aunt Bill.
So
hell yeah.
I've got an Aunt Mutt.
That's awesome. I mean, I have an uncle.
They call her Mutt.
Really into this shit.
There you go. There you go.
Mutt is awesome.
So anyway, I don't understand where this is headed. I did enjoy the trailer for next episode. Like, it was an interesting composition. I think to myself, though, are we going to do a bottle episode where they're stuck in like both Cyprian and Rowan are stuck in, a mind palace for Lasher in the house somehow? Like, is that what they're hinting at? That's what it looked like.
I hope not. I don't want one yet. I don't think it's time for a bottle episode of this show yet. Ugh.
I mean, we've got so much plot. We've got so much plot.
Yeah. I mean, you fucking made your bed. Lie in it. You can't this isn't a show for a bottle episode. Though I did watch one of the best examples of a bottle episode I've ever seen in this most recent episode of Last of Us was fucking amazing. Just FYI, everyone should watch that show if you're not.
I have heard so many people say the third episode that's the one you're talking about, right? It's that good. We're going to jump on it this week because of all the praise.
You got it. You can't wait. You can't wait. It's too good. I mean, you can't wait. And I don't think you'd be able to binge it anyway because it's a lot.
It's heavy. Yeah, it is a lot.
To the show we're talking about. I just think a bottle episode, God, that would be very limiting for the show. And I don't think we'd do anything to make it better. I think it would only do things to make us be like, shit, they ran out of money.
Yes, if we hadn't already been introduced to this dangling witch hunter storyline, if we hadn't already been introduced to this dangling Talamasca conspiracy storyline, we've got the who killed Deidre. We know who physically killed her, but why? Who paid for it, right? We don't know that. That's out there.
Who hired the guy?
All these things that are extra book, right? They're not in the books. These are things invented for the series. You can't afford to spend a whole episode, in my mind, out of 8 with just, 3 or 4 characters in the house, diving into their character development and entwining them closer together. I don't think you can afford to do that. Maybe I'm wrong. I hope it's great, whatever they do. I don't know. All of the trailers have been slightly misleading. You and I talked 2 weeks ago about how, we expected we were going to get the download of the Mayfair family history because they were showing us these paintings and talking about the matriarch. It was like one line, basically. And Josephine didn't even know all their names or which centuries they all lived in, which I kind of loved. Oh, there is a scene with Sip at Telemasca headquarters, and he's got the files out. Our favorite clerk shuffles by, and I guess she smells the files because she's blind.
She could smell the Mayfair files in the air, you guys. I fucking love it.
She's like walking by. She passes him up and she stops. She goes, Cyprian, do you have the Mayfair files out? Yes. And then she asks, Dutch or Haitian? Is that what she says? Dutch or Haitian?
Dutch or Haitian.
Yeah, okay.
Himalayan. Oh my God.
So I saw I saw some comments in the Facebook group about that comment, and are they building like two separate branches of the family? No, this is references to two separate parts of history. The Mayfair history in the novels is broken up into one set of files from the Netherlands, from Dutch, largely from the pen of Peter van Abels, who
that's going to be like
is the beginning of this story.
Suzanne, Deborah, and
right.
That's about where it stops.
And Deborah's daughter. I think he gets all the way. Peter van Abels does go to the Caribbean, but only right at the very end.
That's
but then you're right. Yeah, you forgot. Now you remember. But anyway, the Haitian storyline is just the second chapter of the Dutch storyline. So the family starts in Scotland, moves to the Netherlands, moves to Haiti, and then moves to New Orleans. That's the flow of the Mayfair family. So here we go again, just like the Julian mentioned, all of that exists. That's all real out there somewhere. And I guess we're going to get it in a spinoff. I guess.
I love that.
I don't know.
I think
that's
cool
fine.
And reassuring that that it exists. Like, it's not like it's all been retconned, it exists for us. We may get it in some form or fashion, either within this series or in another one. So I think that at least there's that comfort,
I did have the thought this week that I have had more than a few members of our community suggest to us, or me specifically, that I should watch the Originals, which is the spin-off and sort of sequel/prequel series to The Vampire Diaries, which of course is all based on a book series turned into TV shows. The book series predates the Twilight series, but the TV show is very much it was made in response to the success of Twilight, and so it's I think got a little bit of that flavor to it. The Originals is about older vampires. It's largely set before the Vampire Diaries series, and is from all accounts a much better series, a much more satisfying series for vampire fans like us. I thought to myself, maybe that's what happens with the Mayfair Witches. Maybe the first series is fine, a little, low key and trite, and the second series, the sequel series, is actually like polished and cool.
Yeah, I mean, who the hell knows what we're gonna get at this point? It's such a strange thing to be looking at both of these series. That interview with which we were just completely enthralled with, and then our Witches, where we're just a little confused. Kind of that juxtaposition is just really strange, and the fact that we're covering both of them is so funny to me. But I love it, and I'm watching it, and I'm not hate watching it yet.
I don't think we're gonna get to hate watching. Honestly, I think it's gonna be all right. It's just not an interview, and that's what we've got to own up to. Yeah, I don't think we're gonna get to hate watching. I think this is gonna be fine. I just you have to calibrate, because honestly, Interview with the Vampire was like not just a good adaptation of a source material that you and I both are so passionate about, but it was also just genuinely good, compelling premium television, which is, even in this day and age where we get so much TV, good premium television is still rare. It's still noticeable. You talk to your friends about The Last of Us. You talk to your friends about Andor last year, was another series. I didn't grow up, loving Cassian Andor and emulating him like I did Lestat. And yet that series was just amazing. I told everybody that's remotely interested in Star Wars or science fiction about it. That's what happens when you cross really good art. And so you just have to calibrate. There's great art, and then there's really decent programming. And that's what this is. It's very decent programming, Yeah,
and there's nothing, like, we don't know where it's going, or we only know where we've been so far. And I think that, we still have we're about halfway there. We've got 4 episodes left. I think that there's, lot of, a lot of time left for them to for them to get us where they want us to be. I think we'd probably all feel a little bit stronger about things if maybe we had any sort of idea roadmap wise where we're going to end up. But like right now, I'm so fucking confused. I have no idea what's going to happen next. And that's kind of cool too. You know, it's like, it just kind of puts us back in that, you know, in that seat of being a reader that still doesn't quite know what's happening. It's like I read it while I was like 6 beers in or something.
There you go. There you go. Maybe that's the way we need to watch the show. We just all need to drink a little more before we turn on the tube.
What was that? Ashley H said she was she had a medium margarita at lunch with her sister. Now she was going to watch this 4th episode of Mayfair's in the hopes that the tequila will make it make sense. That was one of our buddies in our Facebook group, and I laughed so hard when I read that. I was like, maybe that would help.
Jose Cuervo, take the wheel.
Yes.
All right. In between here and next week, enjoy yourself. Watch episode 5 of The Mayfair Witches and rejoin us. Check out The Last of Us if you haven't. You've got access to HBO Max. You've heard Ashley's recommendation. I'll throw in my little pop culture recommendation. So I haven't finished it yet. I'm an old person. My wife is an old person, and we got about an hour deep and paused it last night to finish tonight. But we did start watching Megan. Mithrigan is how I've been pronouncing it. The killer robot movie. It's really, really good. And you know what? You know what's also interesting? I mentioned yesterday. It's such a compelling moment, I think, in pop culture. If you're at all a horror fan or you like genre material, you've got kind of like the base, you know, call it what you want to, popcorn, you know, filler, fluff, fare, whatever, the just for fun stuff, like Megan, I would say, very much like that, coming from Blumhouse. You've got just a ton of great horror, low budget and kind of high concept often, but quick and dirty horror movies from Blumhouse. Then you've also got these incredibly high-end art house pieces from A24 on a fairly regular basis.
Yeah.
Like you referenced Midsummer earlier. I was thinking about The Witch so much with this series, obviously. Oh. And Spalding even mentioned they're very much referencing Eggers' The Witch in their Suzanne storylines. Anyway, what a time to be alive that you consistently get a rhythm of releases of like really interesting original content from both those houses in particular, you know, just from interesting visionary directors like Eggers, for instance.
It's so much fun. It's such I say it all the time. Like, it's such a great time to be a nerd in this world. Like, with all of the Star Wars and with the Marvel and with all of the great like content like that we're getting. Last of Us, but as a horror movie fan, which I have been since way before I should have been a horror movie fan, it's such a fun time to be a movie fan. There's just such great movies coming out. There's great, you know, and like you said, it's such a great variety. You know, we've got a brand new Scream movie coming out this year, and I'm a huge fan of that series. And it's you know, the closing out Halloween last year. It's just been a really fun time to kind of sit back and enjoy some really creepy, gory, funny, scary stories.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And referencing Megan specifically, I mean, if you look at the timelines for production, it's basically impossible that they copied her look in any way from Lestat and his costuming. But boy, there are some moments where you get Megan alone in a frame and you're like, they made a little Lestat doll for this show, didn't they?
That's awesome. I can't wait to watch it. My brother said he loved it, so.
It's very enjoyable and a really interesting performance. Let me praise here specifically Allison Williams. It plays sort of like the mom figure in the, she's not actually the mom, she's the aunt, but she's the robotics expert that is Megan's creator and is the little girl's guardian that, you know, the movie is centered around. And it's super interesting. Her performance is very against type, I would say, for what I've seen Allison Williams do before. It's not like she's been in a million things, but I've seen her a lot. And this is very much against all of those roles. I almost didn't recognize her. She is playing so different to me anyway. And I thought to myself, Well, it is. At first, I was sort of confused by it, and I was like, "Why is she doing this?" But then I realized I was just like, I think it's a really interesting choice to mirror the storyline here. We've got a killer robot, and it's like, well, who would create a killer robot? I think honestly, Allison. Not that Allison is an evil character in any way; her character is not. But it's interesting when you break that character down. You're like, oh, this is the kind of person who could stumble backwards into this sort of creation.
Right,
actually, maybe.
Right.
So anyway, very interesting movie, and again,
that's cool.
Cool stuff.
I'm
Go check it out.
pretty underwhelmed by her. I'm usually pretty underwhelmed by her, so I'm glad to hear that it's good. That she's good in particular.
Yeah. I'm really enjoying it. We're going to finish that up tonight, and I'll let you know. But folks, go check that stuff out. Check out episode 5 of Mayfair Witches, and rejoin us next week. Don't forget to check out the conversations going on all week long in the Facebook group and Discord. And until we talk to you again, we've been your hosts. I'm Joel.
I'm Ashley.
And we are the Articulate Coven. Thanks for listening to The Articulate Coven. You can join our community on Facebook by following the links in the show notes or searching for Articulate Coven on Facebook. You can subscribe to the show in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, or at articulatecoven.com. And share us with your Anne Rice loving friends.